Okay, I want to talk about perimeter and area of squares and rectangles. Now, before you skip the video, stick around for a little bit. This front part's pretty short. The ACT example, I think, is really helpful, regardless of whether or not you think you're a pro at this. Now, remember that perimeter is all the way around the outside, right? All the way around the outside. And area, all the way around the outside, like it's a fence. And area is how much grass you'd have to cut if it was your yard. Right? How much grass you'd have to cut if it was your yard. Squares are just special kinds of rectangles, right? You can kind of think of four-sided shapes like this. All four-sided shapes are quadrilaterals, okay? Trapezoids are four-sided shapes that have one set of parallel sides, so two sides are parallel to each other. Parallelograms have two pairs of parallel sides, so two sets of parallel sides. All four sides are parallel to each other. Well, not to each other, but all four sides are parallel to something. Rectangles, two pairs of parallel sides, four 90-degree angles. Squares, four 90-degree angles, four equal sides. Kind of how it works. Let's go ahead and jump into our ACT problem. I think you'll find it helpful, instructive. Okay, this is a good example of when square and rectangle area isn't as easy as it feels like it ought to be. So let's take a look. Now remember, I've got a diagram, and even if I'm drawing a diagram, what I want to do is pull everything out of the question so I can be done with the question. Okay, plan is for a square room. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the whole room, right? So go ahead and mark that side down so that way I know my dimensions. Shaded areas, carpet, that's also square, so this is going to be another 6. Okay. If the dimensions are as marked, how many square feet of tile will be needed? Okay, two ways to solve this. And by the way, this kind of question can also be asked with weird looking shapes where you can do the same thing. You can either create a giant rectangle or a giant square and cut out the negative space, or you can break up the space you want into manageable shapes. Let's do it both ways. So let's just start by finding the area of the big square first. So 14 times 14, that's 14 squared. Side squared, right, is another way to find the area of a square. 14 times 14 is 196. You could also say length times width. I don't like that. 196. Let's try that again. And then we're going to tile all that except for 6 by 6 of it, which is 36. So we could say that basically I'm going to need tile for 196 feet except for the 36 that is carpeted. So that'll be 160 feet. That's one way to do it. So that would give us answer choice B. That's correct. Now I'm going to reduce my coverage on B, aren't I? Oops. So let's back it out. Let's look at another way to do it. So we already know B is correct. Okay. So another way to do it is to say, well, instead of making that one giant square, which I think is probably a little bit easier here, I can make this into kind of a rectangle here and a rectangle there. But now I'm going to have to figure out these extra dimensions. So this side isn't 14 anymore. It's 14, right? Or excuse me, this side isn't 14 anymore. It's 14 minus 6, right? Because this whole thing is 14. I run into that 6, so this side is 8. This side, on the other hand, is 6. So the area of this rectangle will be 6 times 8. It's 48. And we'll do the same thing up here. So the area, or this dimension, is no longer 14 because I'm burning up 6, right? Burned up 6 down here. So this dimension is 8, but it goes 14 across. So 8 times 14. 8 times 10 is 80, plus 8 times 4 is 32, so that's 112. So 112 plus 48 is 0, carry the 1, 6, 160. Two ways to do it, whichever way you like better. Sometimes on some problems I think one works better than some problems I think the other, but it doesn't really matter. Remember, the key thing to do isn't always to sit around waiting and thinking what's the most efficient way to solve the problem, usually the key thing to do is just to start to solve the problem. So pick whatever works for you and go with it. Okay, now make sure you check out the stuff like on trapezoids and parallelograms because it gets a little tougher on these four-sided shapes.